Okay, hello everyone, this is Apple's financial results Q4 2023, okay, also known as the September quarter, dated 2nd November 2023. Please note I'm not a financial advisor and none of this constitutes financial advice. If you have to, please pause the video to read this disclaimer. Right, so we'll quickly look at the income statement. Alright, so this is a quarter-on-quarter comparison. Right, so this is July to September 2023 versus last year's July to September. Right, so we see that products have dropped by 5.32%, services has gone up impressively by 16.29%, and overall net sales has dropped slightly, right, because mainly their income still comes from product sales. Right, if we look at cost of sales, we see that Apple has very good cost controls. Although the product sale dropped by 5%, the cost actually dropped by 8%. That means to say that they're dropping their cost of production, right? And then if you see sales go up by 16%, but cost of sales go up by 14% only. So again, good cost control, right? So you can see that because of the good cost control that Apple has here, even though the revenue has dropped, right, the gross margin has actually gone up by 6%, which is quite impressive, right? Here I added a margin percentage just because I was interested in how their margins are doing, right? So if I compare last quarter in 2022 versus this quarter in 2023, you can see that the margin improved from 34% to 36%, right? So this is just off the product line. I didn't consider the services aspect. Right, so yeah, they make a very good gross margins of their products, right? So 36% I believe is a very high margin, right? So anyway, operating expenses, you can see R&D has gone up, but I think this is a necessary evil in a company, right? For them to be producing things like the M3 chip, for example, alright, they have to actually invest in R&D. So this thing going up is not an issue to me. Okay, selling and general administrative is actually gone down by 4.5%, which is good, right? So total operating expenses gone up slightly, but again I say that I think nothing wrong because most of this is going to R&D, right? So I was reading the transcript from the earnings call, and some of the things that Tim Cook was talking about was that services grew 16%, right? So I think this is one of the reasons why Apple's PE is currently quite high at 31, alright, 30 to 31, okay, because of the growth of the services sector. Right, you can see products are clearly actually on a downtrend, or at least is quarter on quarter not doing so well, right? So services include things like Apple Store advertising, Apple Care, iCloud, payment services and video, right? So Apple TV, right? It also includes Apple Music, which has delivered a quarterly record, right? So he's hit his highest number ever, right? So Tim Cook also talks a lot about India's record revenue, right? It seems like he's giving special emphasis. This is probably the next growth sector for Apple, right? iPhone has set a September quarter record even in China, which I mean is quite surprising given the fact that recently there was talk about, I think, the Chinese government asking their employees not to use Apple products within the office setting, right? So in spite of this, you can see that iPhone sales are still very strong even in China, right? And I think that personally, right, this eye here is me, alright, this is the strongest part of the business, right? The entry to Apple is normally via this iPhone, right? I think that it has a very great user interface that I think so far, while the other products are catching up, they are still not as intuitive as Apple. Right, and if we look at things like the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, the cost value is high, but if you read a little bit deeper, some YouTubers are saying that actually they use the handphone as a camera, right? So if you compare its cost with a camera and the fact that it can replace actually very high-end cameras for video recording, actually the cost of the iPhone 15 Plus, for example, if you are using it for the video, it's actually not that high, right? So according to Tim Cook, okay, sorry, this one should be a capital C here, right? So Tim Cook says that reviews of the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus have been great, right? So weakness in this report is of course hardware products have dropped by 5%. We'll see later why this may not be such a big deal, right? Let's move on to the other part of the income statement. So we just carry on here, right? You can see operating income has gone up by 8.34%. Again, this is due to the fact that they have good cost management, right? And you see net income has gone up by 10%, right? So that's very good. Alright, so if we look at earnings per share, right, you can see that actually it has gone up even further, right? We look at the diluted version, which is more relevant, right? So it has gone up by 13%. So why net income go up by 10% but earnings per share gone up by 13% is because Apple keeps buying back shares, right? So you can see that the number of shares has gone down from 16 million thousand, so it's 16 billion, right? If my mathematics is not correct, right? So if my mathematics is correct, sorry. Okay, so don't need to worry too much about the exact number. Just know that the number of shares have been dropping because Apple has been buying back shares, right? So this is a great thing for the Apple shareholder, right? So Buffett is clearly very happy because this is the way he likes his companies to do things, right? Buy back shares, give out dividends, right? And great free cash flow company, right? So we look at according to country what's going on, right? America has actually improved from the last quarter, right? So in 2022 to 2023, there's an uptick of 0.77%, marginal, but at least it's growth, right? So the 2 points of concern appear to be Greater China and Japan, right? Japan is not such a big concern because it's a smaller part of the pie, right? If you look at just Japan as a part of the overall net sales, right, it's not that big, right? China is a little bit more significant, right? But if you can see, the drop is 2.5%, which isn't too bad. And if you think about what Cook said, actually iPhone sales grew, right? What actually dropped is actually Mac and iPad, right? So this is by category. So across the board, you can see that the Mac and the iPad has underperformed, right? And the reasons for this, I'm not totally clear, but I think some of the reasons could be due to the fact that during COVID, people front-loaded these things, right? That means to say they didn't have money to go overseas, so they actually bought iPads and MacBooks, right? Whether it's the Air or the Pro, and they're at this point coming out of COVID and probably using the money to do other things like travel, right? So that's why there's a drop in the sales of the expensive products like MacBooks and iPads. Right, but that's just one thesis, right? So I think that considering the fact that US-China tensions have been so high, the sales in China has not dropped significantly, and I think even in China, for example, Apple products seem to be a very big part of their lives. Okay, I was watching a Chinese reality show lately, and 2 out of 5 of the men in the show were actually wearing Apple watches, right? And the rest, I think, were not wearing watches at all. So it looks like it's an Apple Watch or it's nothing, right? So the downside is that the M3 chip seems to be a bit underwhelming. So the latest MacBook Pros don't seem to be popular among the YouTubers, even in the video creation space like YouTube, right? So this is the downside, right? So these are the few videos that I was watching, right? So this guy is clearly a YouTuber, right? And he was saying that his M1 Max chip was better than the M3 Pro, right? So I think he was talking about returning his M3 Pro MacBook, right? And this guy is another YouTuber that said that he wasn't that impressed with the M3 MacBook Pro lah. Okay, so you can watch these videos if you're really interested, right? So I'm not going to say that much more, okay, because I want to keep the video below 10 minutes, right? So the company seems to be steady. I think the main thing I will watch for Apple is always its iPhone sales, right? So its iPhone sales is a big part of its product sales, and you can see products is still a big chunk of its revenue, right? So basically, iPhone is the main product this company sells, right? Of course, services is very interesting because it has high growth. At 16% growth is sort of like pretty high growth kind of area, and if they can consistently do 16% growth, it may be why the valuations of the company are a bit high, right? So for in terms of diluted EPS the last 12 months, right? So I'm looking at this number over here, right? $6.13, and I divide by the stock price, which is approximately 190, right? This may not be exact, but I roughly recall it to be 190. The P is around 31 times, right? So I think Apple is a very strong company. Clearly Buffett likes it or not. I recall, I'll just tell a short story at the end. I recall at the time when Buffett was buying this company, I think maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe it's even longer, right? I can't remember how long ago. The P of this company was around 15, and some of my friends were telling me that I think Apple is a has-been company because their product innovation in terms of iPhone has not been great. Like whenever they come up with iPhone, it's always more or less the same things. Alright, but so many years on, the proof is that Buffett was right. So he bought in the company at a price to earning ratio of 15 times, which means that now the stock price is double of his earnings, right? So if Buffett, like if you go back to that time and think about how much would Buffett pay for this stock, alright, instead of $190, Buffett will probably pay $95 for this stock, right? So that will be Buffett's buy price based on today's earnings. But of course, I think Apple looks like it has brighter prospects at this point than then. I think at that point, they didn't have so many product SKUs, like for example, the Apple Watch, or at least the Apple Watch was very new then, and its services wasn't growing so fast then as well. Alright, so with that, I'll end the video. Thank you for listening.